Hello everyone, Mark with Precision Computing. Today's video is going to be featuring something really cool. It's like the holy grail of PC graphics cards. Yes, reached the wrong way. The Nvidia Titan X Pascal. This card's unbelievable. Look at this, right? So beautiful, nice backplate. We're gonna go ahead and, because I know everybody loves this. Oh yeah. Even though we peeled that off, it's gonna be really not important for this build. This is the Titan X Pascal edition from Nvidia. Of course, we see the air cooler on here. The card has been tested. That's about it. We have our 8+6 pin power at the top, of course PCI Express 3.0, and our factory backplate. What we're going to be doing in this video is taking this graphics card, removing the standard air cooler, and we have something very special we're going to be installing from Swiftech, their newest graphics card. I haven't opened the box, I haven't looked at it. I love their backplates. I'm hoping it's similar to the GTX 1080 backplate. And this is the Swiftech Titan X Pascal Eco Waterblock. This thing is so beautiful. It's so heavy too. I mean, that's like half-inch thick acrylic. Look at that. Insane. What's really nice about this water block is we get our Swiftech Timmate, which is some of my favorite thermal paste, included. We get our backplate included. We also have a custom backplate from V1 Tech that we're going to be installing after we get that all set up. And then on top of that, we have this nifty LED strip from Swiftech with the little integrated controller that hooks up to what it looks like a fan header. So we're going to go ahead, switch the camera view, focus on the graphics card. I'm going to walk you guys through taking the air cooler off. So show you guys what screws you have to remove from the back, what screws you have to remove here, getting this air cooler off, go ahead and cleaning the surface of the card and prepping it for the water block install. Stay tuned, the fun's just about to start. Alright guys, and we're back. So now that we have our victim in front of us, let's go ahead and look at the paperwork that Swiftech has included here with the Komodo Eco Titan X Pascal Water Block. First here we see the installation guide, which pretty much tells us what screws need to be removed, applying thermal paste, what screws will get put back into the graphics card. Let's see. This shows the installation optional here for 3mm LEDs not supplied. And it says to use crazy glue, super glue, or equivalent to secure the LED to the block. We have the LED strip, so we're going to see how that mounts in. Yeah, so that's pretty straightforward. One thing I'll note, well, we'll talk about that in a minute as we get into the water block. And again, Nvidia GeForce Titan X. Guide the installation. This is in another language. Alright, so we have a couple different languages of installation instructions there, which are pretty good. One thing I did want to bring this up so you guys could take a little nicer look at it here. We can see right in the center here it says Titan X. The very nice view through of where the water passage is, the nice thick acrylic, and you can see down here, now this whole thing is wrapped in cellophane, but down here there's 3 holes where you could put 3mm LEDs to help light it up. It also, at the top here, is another metal plate that says Titan X. So it's very nice that, everybody's so proud of their graphics cards. especially when you get a Titan X. So it's nice that they integrated this, because if your card is mounted in normal orientation on the motherboard, you're not going to see this. You're not going to see Titan X here. You know, we're going to be taking all this off, so you won't see Titan X there. So it's nice that they integrated this into the top, because in most situations, people are going to mount their water block, their graphics card in normal orientation. So you're still going to see that at the end, which is really nice. We can see this block here mounts with 3 screws. I know they have SLI block options and things like that, different options for the top of the card, but we'll just be using the standard one. The card does come with 2 block offs, so we'll be inserting those depending on how we're going to run the water loop in this setup. And then the nice thing about this, I know a lot of water blocks don't come with the thermal pads pre-installed, but Swiftech has pre-installed the thermal pads for us. So there's no guesswork. You don't have to. You can see how many different pieces. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 different pieces of thermal material, different thicknesses for different places on the card. So they've taken all the guesswork out of that. You don't need instructions on what to put where. You don't need to cut this stuff down. You don't need to fuddle with it. It's all set. All you do is peel the backing paper off of it, put a little thermal paste on the graphics card, or on the graphics chip, I'm sorry, on the GPU itself, and screw it all together, and you're all set to go. So very nice looking block. It's so heavy and durable and thick. It's really impressive. It really is. We have a little bag of screws here, which are going to be all of our normal. And then next, inside this little bubble wrap here, was the backplate. And they keep the screws for the backplate separate from the other screws in the little bubble wrap with the backplate. So very nice backplate. It's got a nice, look at that, clean chrome beveled edge. The nice Swiftech logo here. Little vented area right behind where the GPU would sit. And then of course we're going to have our custom backplate from V1 Tech mounted right on top of that. So we're going to get the benefits of having the metal backplate, the benefits that Swiftech gives us with that, plus we're going to have the custom backplate on top of that, our screws that come along with it. So we'll set that to the side, and then here we have our light controller from Swiftech, and this is purchased separately. You can see our 2 screws inside that packaging, purchased separately, but all from Swiftech, of course. And there's 2 holes in the PCB, and this that goes over the top of it. So I'm wondering where they have that. Oh, right in the end here. So that's going to run here, and it's going to neatly tuck along the back side here with a little plastic shroud. Yeah, plastic. So it's going to look nice and neat on the graphics card. And then you'll have just the 1 wire that runs and tucks underneath. So that's really nice. That's going to look really nice when it's done. And it's going to send those LEDs this way, and it's going to light up that whole block. The other nice thing to note here is on the other end, which is the I/O end, you're going to remove those 2 screws that hold that I/O plate in, and they actually have it tapped into the block here, so that those will thread in. Some other cards, the block just ends right here and it's just all held on by mounting it to the PCB. This actually extends all the way, and so you're going to have it mount in the back, plus mounting here, mounting to your I/O, everything secured to the PCB. So this is going to be a really nice installation when it's all said and done. One of the reasons I really like Swiftech products. So now that we have that established, let's go ahead and get this air cooler off this graphics card. I'm going to start off by removing all these little screws here that hold the back plate on. We can leave these 4 because they don't, the back plate will come off right around those. Removing these 2 screws at the top, and then on the I/O plate here, we need to remove just these 2 screws in the center. None of the rest of them matter. And once we do that, I'm going to go ahead and get that off, because it's going to be really boring to watch me unscrew here. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, pause the video for a second, come right back, and we'll move on to the next step. Alright, now that we got all those screws pulled out, what I like to do is keep a little baggie or a little cup to put the screws back in, because then I'll store everything inside the original box that the card came in, so that I have all those accessories later on down the line. You know, some people like to keep things, some people don't. I like to put it all back in the box just in case I ever wanted to put the air cooler back on this card. down the line in the future. So what I've done is I've removed all the screws from the back plate. I removed the 2 from the I/O shield here, and this just comes right off. Nothing really special about these. We can remove those, set those to the side, and once we do that, we're going to see the next step here. There's little hex heads that hold down the actual card to the air cooler, and that's, I believe, a 4mm is what you're going to need for that. It's a little 4mm socket. You could probably use pliers or something, maybe needle nose, but it's just so much easier to have this. Now, this little tool here is pretty nifty. This actually came with one of my Thermaltake water blocks for my GTX 1080, which, as you can see, goes right over this and just very easily takes these out. Now, this is like, you know, this is going to save you a lot of time doing this, and it's going to make sure that you safely remove this and that you're not playing with pliers and slip off and break off a resistor, transistor, scratch the PCB, or, you know, damage anything on this $1,200 graphics card, or even a, you know, a 1080 that's $800, or any graphics card. It's expensive. You don't want to damage it. The right tools always help you get the job done right. I'm going to go ahead and remove these, and then remove these 4 screws, and we'll show you how easily the air cooler comes off the card. Alright, so we removed the screws. I went ahead and just ran a little timer so you guys could see how long it took me. So with the little 4mm driver and a regular number 1 screwdriver to remove the 4 center screws over the GPU, 1minute 15 seconds. So when I'm pausing this, it's only taken me a minute or 2 to remove the screws that I'm telling you guys I'm going to remove. It's a fairly quick process. And then I've gone ahead and put the rest of those screws in with our other screws in our baggie. So now we're going to see how this comes apart. Now, it's going to be a little tight because you're going to have the friction of the thermal interface material. You're going to have the thermal pads that are going to be a little bit sticky. So we just want to, oh, and look at that, go ahead and pull. And then, of course, we're going to have our fan power, or our LED power, and our fan power on the board. So we want to make sure to carefully remove those things. And then here we have our bare board. Now what I usually do too here is I'll take any of these that are, any of the little thermal pads that are stuck here to the board where they're missing from here, and I'll go ahead and I'll pull them off and put them on here if they'll stick down. Sometimes Nvidias are pretty good. Some of these that I've played with over the years, they just kind of crumble as you go to touch them, so they're really not meant to be used multiple times. But again, I do this because if I'm ever going to reinstall the air cooler, even if I put all new pads on the card here, this allows me to very easily remember where everything was. So just saves you some time down the road. A minute now can save you a couple hours in the long run. So overall, the thermal interface material installation looks pretty decent. It's a pretty even spread. Can't really complain about that. If I look at it on the card here, the same. It's a decent material. It's still pretty moist. It's not dried or too pasty. So overall, not a bad job. So now let's walk into the next step, which is how we're going to clean this card. And let me go grab the tools to do that, and we'll be right back. Alright, so cleaning the graphics card, cleaning the thermal interface material really on any surface, an air cooler, water cooler, whatever it might be, CPU block, it's not limited to GPUs. You'll have 100 different people tell you 101 different ways to do this. What we have here, and this is what I've used for the past, I don't know how many years. It's just a standard coffee filter. Okay. And I take it and I fold it into a little square. Why do I use coffee filters? They're lint free. You use a paper towel, you get lint all over your graphics card. You use Q-tips, you get fuzz all over your graphics card. Sometimes you can use that if there's excessive thermal paste, just to kind of get some of that excess off. But then I take this and 91% isopropyl alcohol. Now you don't have to worry too much about this stuff because it evaporates really nice. I just go ahead and, you know, squirt some on the surface. You don't have to be stingy with it. And as we go right over our GPU block, it's going to take the thermal interface material right off, and then I go ahead and this is pretty soaked through. So I'll use another surface, and I'll clean where all of my thermal pads were, because those are sticky. They leave a residual residue on our VRMs, our memory sinks. So I just go ahead and give those a wipe. Any place that's going to come into contact with new thermal material. And you can see around the edge of the GPU block here, some of this paste has just kind of, it more scraped off than it did come off. So I'll just go around and make sure that I got it all. Throw that in the garbage. And then I'll take a clean one. One more time. And this time, I just put a little bit, because we want this to evaporate. We don't really want it to soak through. We want it to evaporate off. You can even use a dry side to polish that chip clean. Any little dust that might come across, it just blows right off because there's nothing for it to stick to anymore. And then you have a clean graphics card. Not sure if we can focus in on that chip. We can see it's clean. So, now that we have that cleaned off and we have our pads already installed here, let's go ahead and get the cellophane removed from the water block here. And it's probably in a couple pieces. And that's just the stuff that was wrapped around the back. So, with that removed, I'm going to leave it on the front side of the water block because I don't want to, it'll just help me get as few fingerprints on it as possible. And then just take any kind of knife blade, this is how I usually do two-phase tape or pads, and remove the one side of the pad. Go ahead and we'll do this for all the pads. Alright, so we have all the pads removed from our thermal pads there. All the paper, I should say. I'm gonna go ahead and get our thermal paste opened up here. Go ahead and get that applied on our GPU. Now, again, 101 people will tell you 102 different ways to apply thermal paste. It's a method that's worked for me, so it's a method that I stick with. Some people use a drop in the center or whatever it is. As long as the thermal paste is non-conductive, you don't really have to worry about using too much because it's going to squish and it's going to spread out evenly. With all of our pads and everything in place, here's a little tip with water blocks. When you go ahead and put the two surfaces together, you want to make sure you try to line everything up properly. The LED strip with this graphics card and the backplate are separate, so you can buy just the water block if you're going to install your own LED solution, or you can buy the water block plus the backplate, or you can buy the water block, backplate, and the LED strip. So it gives you multiple options for whatever you want to purchase. And this is something you always want to be leery of. You want to try to line everything up properly so nothing gets in the way. It usually just sits right in place. The thermal pads will kind of hold it in place, but here's a little tip from me to you. Once you have the block on like that, you can't set it on a flat surface because this side of the block is going to want to keep falling down while you're screwing it in. So bring it to the edge of a table and just set the I/O plate off the edge of the table. That way the block is flat on your work surface and it's not going to try to lift off and walk away from you as you're trying to install all your screws. So one other thing that we want to remember here is we have our two screws that are going to hold in our I/O shield. We have our two little nuts, our two little washers. We're going to want to go ahead and get those in while we still have flexibility to move this away from the graphics card, in case we need to have a little bit more working room with that. well, if we look from this side, the bottom one's wide open, so that's not going to be a problem. But the top one is behind that little piece of plexiglass, so we'll go ahead and get the bottom one put on here. Now the nice thing with these screws too, they all have thread locker on them, so you never want to over tighten. You know, we're talking about PC components. These circuit boards are fragile. They can break. So you don't want to get over ambitious and try to, you know, torque these things on. All they need to be is tight. So want to make sure that everything is tight, but you don't want to break anything installing it. So we'll go ahead and get that started. Hard lift it out here. But once we have these started on the end, they'll kind of hold the end of the card in place over here. So we can set it back down and we'll go ahead and get the rest of our screws in. Now one thing, as I said, this back plate is a separate piece. So, of course, the notch is going to face like this here. But we want to make sure that we don't put the screws in. We have the screws for our back plate here, so we can't put the screws here through the holes where the screws for the back plate are going to go. So what I usually do to counteract that measure is just set the back plate right next to it. We'll go ahead and we'll put all of our screws in that go from the card into the water block and not also through the back plate, so that we get all these lined up. We'll get those tightened down. Usually all 4 of our GPU screws, those go in. So we'll get all of these in, and then we'll go ahead and put the back plate on and we'll get the screws in for the back plate. So I'm going to go ahead and get these tightened up and we'll be right back. Alright, so we have all of the screws in that don't line up with the holes that are in the back plate. So now we'll go ahead and we'll set the back plate in place. And as you can see, it's got little standoffs on the back, so it lifts it above the rest of the screws that are already mounted. We'll go ahead and get that lined up. We'll put our screws in and show you something important here. Now they have thread locker on them. What that does is it helps prevent vibration and other things from causing the screws to want to come loose. Now here we can see another thing that I usually do is you get one in, I'll get it started, and then let's go to another corner. And we'll get that one started, and then the other corner. Get them all started, at least in the corners anyway. That'll hold the whole back plate in place. That'll make sure that all of our screw holes are lined up. Now what the thread locker will do is as you're tightening these screws, it's going to come to a point where it's going to feel tight because the thread locker is grabbing. So you want to make sure that you watch the screw head, you make sure it's seated, and then a lot of times what I'll do is just use 2 fingers, just so that I know I'm not over tightening that screw. Make sure that it's seated down, 2 fingers, that's it. Okay, seated down, 2 fingers. Again. 2 fingers. That way we're not stripping those screws, we're not breaking that circuit board, we're not over tightening any of those. So I'm going to go ahead and get the remaining, only 4 screws in here, and then mount the LED strip on the back. We'll be right back. Alright, look at that. How beautiful. Got all of those screws nicely seated. Our top and bottom I/O shield screw there. Got our LED kit mounted to the back side. Look at that. Just a nice little black plastic strip at the end of the card there. You don't even notice it. The wires would tuck underneath. The whole block will light up. Really nice integration of that. So that'll be really nice to see. And then of course we have our nice backplate from V1Tech. So this thing's gonna look really killer mounted inside the computer. You got the nice backplate, you got the Titan X on the end there, Titan X at the top. We got some sleeved cables from V1Tech also that are gonna wire this thing up. This is a serious piece of machinery. I can't say enough. I love the design, I love the style. It's Swiftech, so we know it's gonna perform well. And we'll be right back to wrap up the video. Stay tuned. Alright guys, so to wrap this up, we have the Iris controller from Swiftech that I don't have here with me. That's why I seem a little confuzzled when I was looking at these wires, like what am I going to plug that into? So that's on its way. We have an extension cable here that we can plug into the plug here, and then plug it into the controller. Or actually this way. Plug the male end into this and plug this into the controller. And then you can also daisy chain other LED products right off of that. So we can hide these out of the way. That controller can get put anywhere in your case. The controller also has a feature where you can run a wire and run it to, say, your reset button on a 2-wire switch, so that you could have a switch manually mounted on your case, and you could just, from that switch, push the button, change the lighting scheme of this LED strip that's going to light up your water block. So that controller also has a fan hub, so you can plug in PWM fans to it, and a couple different features. Head over to Swiftech's website, you can check that out. You can check out their awesome Titan X Pascal Komodo Eco Series water block, along with all their other water cooling products. Beautiful backplates. I've been a firm believer in Swiftech for a long time, and this is why. This water block is going to ensure the safety of this graphics card. It's nice and sturdy, it's nice and rigid, it does have some weight to it. The newer motherboards, the X99, Z170, the PCI expansion slots are coming with the metal shielding to them, which I've noticed gives more stability. I don't think this is any heavier than the card with the air cooler on it, but it does have some weight to it. But what you can ensure of that is that it's going to hold that PCB nice and straight. It's not going to bend, it's not going to flex, it's not going to change position. So you know you're going to get the most optimal performance that you can out of your water cooling system and out of your Pascal Titan X graphics card. Again, we have, we pull that off, beautiful finish, a nice Titan X block in the front, in the top, the nice Swiftech logo in the back. Of course, we have our V1Tech backplate here that we're going to affix to this graphics card. So once it's all installed in the system, it's going to look really nice. Upside down. Oh, sorry, twisted. That's going to look really nice along with the cabling that we have to gray and black themed PC. This card's actually going to go over to Australia, and that's where it's going to find its final resting place, a new PC for a buddy of mine. So, if you liked this video, go check out Swiftech. They deserve it. Their products are awesome. I promote them because they work, because I use them. I've been using Swiftech water blocks, Swiftech water pumps for a very long time, since I got into water cooling. Go check it out. Go check out their products. Make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel for more upcoming videos. I do have also a GTX 1080 Swiftech Komodo water block. It's the other design, not the Eco. I'm not going to give you too much detail. You'll have to stay tuned for that one to come out. I should be doing that very soon here. And just a lot of upcoming videos. We're going to have some CES coverage, just a little over a month away. We're going to share a link to this as any social media that we can. Make sure to like us on Instagram, Facebook. Check out our website for all of our previous, current, and past builds that we've done, media, and other things. So, give us a like if you liked the video. If you didn't, that's fine. Any criticism, comments you want to leave in the comment section below, we'll try to get back to you. Stay tuned for the next video. Mark with Precision Computing. Until next time.